Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Nuance. I have built the inside of my van as a nice studio, and so I have a beautiful China red backdrop here because what I'd like to talk about today is where I see China going in context with what is happening here in America. It's a lot of rehash because I actually talked a lot about this in 2016 and on during this administration's first term. I feel it's a lot of the same. When America is not globally minded, when they're not helping other countries, when they're not a player in the world and supporting them in health, supporting them in infrastructure, and supporting them as just a good partner, that leaves a huge opening to people and countries that are interested in those things, whether it's for good reasons or not, right? I mean, we all know that U.S. aid was a soft power tool for the United States to go and say, hey, let's help you out. And then there's a little bit of back scratching going on, right? There's some scratching of the back here, scratching of the back there. And on top of it, America looks like a altruistic, empathetic country. And that builds goodwill. You only have to look at the complete dismantling or the desire to completely dismantle USAID and think all that does is leave a vacuum for the next country that wants to either use soft power to grow their brand or, that genuinely wants to help people. I believe China is going to be that filler. I think America is just consistently shooting themselves in the foot with regards to all of these things. The reputation of America is such an important thing for retaining itself as a reserve currency. If they can't be trusted to do what they say and say what they do consistently over the course of 4-year terms of the administration, then what you're going to end up having is people say, I'm going to go to the person I can trust. Whether you believe it or not, China has been results oriented. I lived in China for 17 years, and it was consistent to see them say something and then do that thing. We're going to combat poverty, and then all of a sudden you see them building cities, villages or towns for, people who are impoverished, and building programs to support people and improving rural areas by building infrastructure. And I saw it with my own eyes. It's not propaganda, They say, we're going to connect all of China together, and so that you can move easily for very, very little money. Giving you mobility provides you an opportunity to grow as a citizen. And so I saw that. I mean, there's no denying China was working very hard to build a powerful infrastructure program. China was saying, we're going to go outside of China and build infrastructure for other people, and they did it. Now, obviously, there's arguments on that being soft power and possibly debt diplomacy issues, but there is a lot of infrastructure out there that's connecting the world and has connected the world that's there now. I was riding through Laos when the train was being built in that area for connecting China all the way down through Southeast Asia.
Check this out, guys. This is super interesting. Now, we are in Laos. The infrastructure is rough at best, but they're growing this rail. This is a high-speed rail, and it's run by Power China. I mean, look on this side, and then look at the mountains, and then look at these this rail being built.
I was riding down the road and I was looking at the lifestyle of the people I was riding past. They were farming or they were doing whatever they were doing in that area of Laos, and they'd wave and then I'd ride past.
Here we go. Here's one of the little areas here, just hanging out on the side of the road. They'll be out there later, I think. Hello.
I'd look on one side of the street and see a family on this stilt platform living life like that, and then I'd look on the other side and I'd see these huge Chinese branded dump trucks and equipment building the risers for the high-speed rail that they were putting in place. And I looked across to these people who were living in Laos, And I could also take into context what I had seen in China of the upward growth of the people who were living in rural China. And I was thinking about this family and how much their life was going to improve once that railway was finished. Their kids are going to have a better life than they did, and their kids' kids are going to have so much upward mobility as well. And I was thinking, what an incredible opportunity these people are going to have. Again, there was debt issues, and there's all sorts of these kind of things. But you know what's going to be left? That railway is going to be there. And that railway is going to be able to allow that villager in that small area of Laos to either get to Vang Vieng, Vientiane, to get to Cambodia, to ride all the way to Thailand, or ride into China to work. Their kids will be able to hop on the rail in Laos, jump over the border, and maybe do something productive or helpful to generate an income in China. It's like a really big win-win. First, America is ignorant to the benefit of globally helping. You know, they're not interested right now with this administration, and even with the previous Biden administration, they weren't necessarily competing with the Belt and Road Initiative. They tried to come up with their own version of it, and it failed pretty horribly. What this administration is doing is backing away from impactful programs that they can be involved in universally, like the Paris Climate Accords, or helping bolster their European allies. Hell, they're trying to take over Greenland, or we're going to take over Canada, make it the 51st state. We're going to rename, the body of water, the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. We're going to, send troops into Mexico. All of these things, one, nobody's going to take you seriously, and two, you're losing trust in the countries that are our allies, and three, we don't know what the hell's going on as a populace. Are you joking or are you serious? Are you going to do it or are you not? And what that does is it just loses our trust. America is losing trust. And what's going to happen is the next superpower is going to come in, and they're going to have a really easy job of it, because China has all of these things, like that rail that I drove past in Laos. That's working now. That's going, all of these things that they had been building for the last decade. China doesn't think like 1 year, 2 year, 4 year term ahead. They think in groups of decades or even centuries ahead. Every country is trying to focus on their success. And so China has been focused on, how do we compete against America? How are we going to contrast ourselves from America? How are we going to maybe nip at the edges to kind of pull away some of what America has and infuse it into what we have? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Everybody does that. Everybody looks at the world and says, how do I gain strength? How do I make myself better? And China, in a lot of ways, has been doing this. They've been building this infrastructure, this plan for a long time. I know they were doing it since I moved to China 17 years ago. And so they've been trying to strengthen themselves by positioning themselves against, America, and trying to figure out, how can we work together but also strengthen ourselves and compete? I gotta believe that there's meetings within the high-profile government officials in China that are like, we built this infrastructure to compete against this juggernaut, and they're acting like preschoolers. So this is going to be easy now, because we've already built so much infrastructure. We've already proof of concept so much stuff that they open up Truth Social and they see a post, that's just making America look so lacking in legitimacy, that they think it's going to be easy. It'd be like you're running a race and you're not very good at running the race, and you're not very good. So you start training and you look at the guy who's number one, and this guy is peak performance, just muscly and everything, and he's doing great, and he's what you're focused on competing against. So you train every day. You work so hard. You work on your diet. You work on you work on all of these things every day, diligently, hard, focused, dedicated building of muscle, building of health, you know, living a good example. And at some point, the number one guy decides that he really likes hamburgers, and he falls in love watching the latest Netflix show, and all of a sudden he's not spending every day at the gym, and he's focused on other things. You've already built yourself into the guy that's going to compete. You're ready. You've got all the muscle now. You're big and strong, and you're looking at your competitor now, and you're like, oh, this is going to be easy. This is going to be easy. I got the shoes. I got the body. I've got the fitness watch. I've got all the things I need. And you're giving it to me. You've just given it up. I'm going to take that gold away from you, and it's going to be easier than I ever thought it was going to be. And so I'm pretty sure that China is thinking right now, thanks. You know, obviously, there's implications beyond this. I oversimplify a little bit. China would have to really fumble really hard to lose now. They've built themselves a real win-win, and it will be done on the backs of us losing. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'd like to see us both, you know, working together and competing against each other on a level playing field. Like I said, there's a lot of nuance to this topic, but in larger terms, I think China's going to smoke us. I think if we rose together, we'd do amazing things, because we would drive each other to excel and innovate. And I think that with America pulling back as a global influence and as a global role model, I guess the ball is in China's court right now, and America has just walked off the field. So all they got to do is whack it, and they can pretty much hit whatever they want, I think. Let me know what you think. Do you think I'm off base? Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know if you'd like me to talk about anything else specific. I have not recorded a video on nuance in so long that I feel like there's so much that has happened that I'm going to have to go back into the annals and like really dig deep and find out what I missed. But I do love shooting these, and I do miss sharing some of my thoughts. And I know that maybe they're not all perfect or streamlined, but that's why the comment section is there. We can talk about it. But we'll catch you in the next one. So I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.